was that time,
Yeah.
whenever, like a month ago. All right, welcome everybody. We got a nice rowdy crowd here today. I love it. It's great to see everybody on this beautiful Saturday morning. Virgo season is upon us. Woot woot. We have Emily today as our guest sermon. I'm very, very excited. She's going to be talking about herbal remedies, right? Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Emily is one of our guest ministers. She is absolutely fabulous. And I'm gonna waste no more time and I'm gonna just let her take it away. So take it away, Emily.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks y'all for being here. Um, so I might someone might, if you're like, oh, I read this thing in the description, I want you to talk about this, remind me what I put for the description. But mostly I wanted to just open the conversation around um ingesting plants, herbs, as medicine or as allies in support of our healing. Um, and I've just been, yeah, spending a lot of time like just sitting with one plant at a time and reflecting on like how do I feel this interaction and have like an intimate relationship with this one, because it really is an intimate relationship. We're taking this plant's life and it's coming into our body and affecting our body, mind, and life. And so just kind of that's the theme of exploration. I'm not going to be spouting facts about like what other people have found or said about like this plant does this. It's really more of like how do we come into that inquiry and that relationship ourselves and find out how it's yeah. So I think there's also a lot of value in different forms of research, aka trying it out. Different people have tried a lot of different plants in a lot of different ways, and their experiences give us valuable information about how it affected them and therefore how it might affect us. But something that got me starting to think about these things is like, for example, when I was in my 7 years of nursing training, nurse midwifery training, especially in the midwifery portion, a lot of times it would come up that, they'd be like, oh, okay, we're very holistic. So let's acknowledge, like, there is this herbal remedy that someone might ask you about, or someone might be taking, or, check if someone's taking St. John's wort because it interacts with this medication. And, in general, check for interactions with medications and herbs, even herbal teas, but it was always spoken about in this interestingly, like, sort of dismissive and condescending way in the medical field in general. It was like, oh, the tea doesn't really do anything, but also like tell people not to drink it, or it'll interact with their medication. So that got me like really curious about like, obviously this plant has a very real potent effect, um medicinal, whatever you want to call it, effect. And like it is interacting with the medications, it is interacting with us. And why are we like so dismissive of that or so casual about it when it's actually like this is the medicine, right? And then studying pharmacology, and I'm like, wow, all of these medications um in some way are like formed from like particles, constituents of um plants and or animals. But a lot of our medications, we've learned how to make them by studying plants, right? um so but we don't, in the medical field, that's not really honored and acknowledged, right? It's just like, oh, we're so smart that we made this medication. And often we're consuming like um different like pieces and parts of a plant in combination with a lot of other things, right? So when we actually recognize a plant as um a living being, with its own consciousness, with its own vibration of medicine that it is inherently. um wow, like why would we be so hasty to just like take parts of it and not really sit with and get to know the whole being and how it wants to interact with us and other beings, other plants, you know? So um yeah, so I've started doing, you know, my own research, especially in midwifery training, about like, okay, why are they saying things like raspberry leaf and St. John's wort and um you know, so many things that we would talk about as like, oh yeah, whatever, people are, it's like probably placebo effect, but also, hey, there's all these studies that there are these real effects, right? So I kind of traced back to, when did we start putting down herbal medicine, right? And like replacing that with pharmaceutical industry, and how much of that, how much of our thoughts and our relationship with plants have been like maybe distorted by that narrative or that propaganda about um, how we interact with plants. And I feel like it's very empowering for me to come back into direct relationship with a plant growing near me. Um, and simultaneously, as I was going through the end of my nursing training, I was also um, pulled to this kind of like mystery school. So I was also part of this training called the Song of Sophia. Um, I wouldn't call it training. Yeah, I would call it a school of sorts. Um, and we would sometimes gather in person, mostly online. And it was an exploration of throughout the course of a year, or 13 moon cycles, each month we would attune to one plant and like really sit with one plant. And I'm not going to go into this or like speak for any lineage or anyone else, but what I started to learn is that in many cultures, in many places in the world, for many thousands of years, there are traditions and practices of, some people call it dieta or plant attunements, or like really just being with one plant for an extended period of time, like at least a month or whatever it is. So there are a lot of different ways to be with a plant, right? So literally physically sitting with it. So some of the deeper like engaged like plant attunements that I engaged in were a lot to do with, first, like sitting with the plant, you know, just feeling its energy, maybe smelling it, touching it, um, asking to, you know, asking questions, like just listening, right? Waiting. And for me, listening is like a full body experience. Like, just how much can I bring my attention to this spacious noticing of like, how are my sensations changing? And can I discern what's like maybe thought patterns and my own stuff moving, and what's actually that plant coming in and introducing a way of like shifting that sensation or shifting that thought pattern or shifting the way something else is moving through my body. And at first for me it was very cloudy, like, what is this? Was that the plant? Is that just me? And just really it's a practice, you know, it's like strengthening a muscle by just paying attention. It's like meditation. We're just keep bringing our attention and awareness back to the breath, or back to like that inquiry with the plant, you know. So um yeah, so for some people they'll do like, for example, like a rose dieta. So maybe they go sit with a rose bush every day, and they also are drinking rose tea every day, and they're refraining from other teas, you know, for that period of time to be able to have that kind of more clarity and focused concentration and deepen that relationship. So I found that really an interesting perspective and quite a contrast to my, colleagues in the medical field. So I've been finding my own way to kind of like explore this in a really simple, um, curious way. So just staying open to curiosity. And for me, that's looked like, so I suggested for this call, maybe, bring a cup of chamomile tea or mint tea or something where you're just acknowledging one plant at a time, right? So we can start to honor that, wow, each plant really has its own unique way of affecting us, mind, body, soul, whatever. So, even matcha, like Jess brought matcha, that's like, wow, you could definitely feel that plant, and feel how that's unique. um I mean, honestly, I had some coffee. That's a really powerful plant medicine. We know that's a major has major effect on all of our systems. And coming into relationship with it, I've definitely noticed I have very different effects from coffee when I'm using it in different ways versus like making some time and space to open up to it and sit with it and be like, oh, thank you for this energy and this clarity. Coffee plant, wow. Whereas if I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to a night shift, just get it down while I'm on the road, it's like, oh God, now I'm like shaking and wired and I feel nauseous because I didn't really honor the plant. And also, the particular plant that is coffee, I've noticed in my interactions, I need to eat something with it. It's very different if I do it at nighttime. It doesn't, it changes a lot of my natural cycles that want to happen. So working with it in harmony um, is a very different experience than just being like, whatever, I'm addicted, mix it with other cacao. Cacao is supposed to be better, whatever. Like, can we really honor cacao as an experience, right? Can we really honor each one and then decide and feel how they come together for us at different times? So another example, like sometimes um recently I was talking to a client who's like, okay, I got all these different supplements and I'm trying all these different tea blends and I'm kind of overwhelmed with it. Like, what do you think I should start folk with? Can I narrow down my regimen? And what came to me was like, yeah, let's like really simplify for now, right? Like if your system is already processing a lot, maybe overwhelmed, um, your liver's already processing a lot and dealing with a lot of different pieces and beings and ways that they need to be processed through the body. A lot of these like blends and supplements, like there's a lot of different plants and parts that your body's trying to interact with and find clarity and discernment with and a way of interact like all at once. And a lot of times we don't have clear hard facts about how each plant combo interaction, is. And again, maybe it's not a universal truth. Maybe it's really personal relationship from the inside of your body. So what came through for that person, I was like, what if like it sounds like you're actually telling me that you're overwhelmed by like the feeling of swallowing these pills and your liver's already feeling like achy and processing a lot. What if you just do you like chamomile tea? Like would chamomile tea, like can we just focus on chamomile tea as a medicine right now? And she's like, oh yeah, I love chamomile, I've been drinking chamomile and ginger and blah, but like why? And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. So what if you sat with that, like really noticed how things are shifting as you drink and after you drink your just chamomile tea, right? Like I say just chamomile because everyone's like, oh, it's so subtle and gentle. It's also a really powerful flower or plant, it has these real effects. And sometimes subtle and gentle is the medicine that we need. And having one plant at a time and in its full form, like the full flower, seeped in water is a lot more clear and easy to digest for a lot of us sometimes, for me, it feels easier for my body to actually receive um, and work with, quote unquote. I don't really like to say work with, it's kind of just interact with. But yes, the plant does get work done for us, it does, like, it is, I feel like plants are really here to support us. So, and the other example, like mint tea, it's like, oh, it's just kind of like a flavoring, but we also know that it has an effect on our digestion. It has an effect on our mental clarity. There are a lot of ways to work with peppermint. Like recently someone was just like putting it on my skin, and I was like, wow, this feels so enlivening in my whole body. I never would have thought to put it on my skin, but it was great, we're just like steaming it and breathing it in. So yeah, obviously there's different ways to work with different plants. Some of them like to be smoked, some of them like to be in tea, some of them like to be in tincture, some of them want to be topical, some of them want to be saying with, it's like, and like I said, humans have been exploring this for so long. We're so grateful that some of it is recorded, and like they're like, hey, this one you might want to, process this way. And hey, if you take too much of this one, like it's actually you don't want to overdose on this, and it's actually important to process or prepare this one in this way, right? So that is helpful to learn from others. And there's also the element of like, Google doesn't know exactly how you're gonna feel with your chamomile tea at this point in your life. So that's where we come into that direct relationship, and that you know yeah, exploration. um so does anyone like have any thoughts or questions or anything you want me to like elaborate on?
So while you
I'm
were,
curious.
sorry,
Oops.
go ahead, Gordon.
Okay. What I'm curious about is whether or not there's like a taxonomy of symptoms and corresponding herbs that you would use to alleviate those symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess that's like what I mentioned. Like there's a lot that we do know about how plants generally interact with most people who are experiencing similar symptoms or whatever. So I think that's a helpful like starting point, is to turn to some of that information, but to not take that as like that's exactly how it's going to be for you, right? And maybe to kind of simplify by extracting like trying one thing at a time. It's kind of like elimination diet, one tea at a time, and then working into blends when you come up with the blend that feels intuitively right for you, using the information about like, yeah, this helps with this generally, and okay, like I've felt how this interacts with what I'm dealing with right now. You know what I mean?
I do, and it makes sense. I mean, what you're doing effectively is cultivating awareness of sensation in regard to each herb and how it interacts with your body, your system. It's interesting because that's true of all kinds of relationships, even
Mm-hmm.
human partnered relationships, rather than having a recipe that's a one size fits all for everybody. The ability to explore and discover together and to cultivate awareness of sensation and what works for a unique combination of two people is very similar to
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying about symptoms and herbs.
Right. And on that note, I was just talking with my husband about, we thought we figured that out, and it changes, right? Now you go through different phases, and you are now a different being in a way, or think you're feeling differently, different things have arisen. And so it's like, yeah, what worked for us as a prescription 4 years ago is not the medicine that's needed for us to like really deeply connect now, where we're at now, so that's again where it's like you can read what it says on the supplement bottle, and we all have such a unique combination of things, you know, that we are and
Sure.
that we're experiencing at any given point. So,
And that even changes from day to day, right?
right.
Because when two people come together, sometimes somebody is tired or hungry
Yeah.
or bored or restless or annoyed or something, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the dynamic changes, and so the
Mm-hmm.
prescription needs to change to match that.
Yeah, exactly. So how can
Otherwise,
it
where's
be a
the
living
connection?
dynamic conversation and relationship rather than like, you're going to do this for me because that's what someone else said, and I'm going to have this demand on you before I even have a conversation with you about what's going on, you know?
Yep,
And how you,
exactly.
what you want to offer and how, like, yeah.
Yep. Well, the last thing you want to do is find yourself in a position where something just happened, and then you end up saying to yourself, "Oh, I know what's coming next."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then it's boring and it mutes the effect that might have been delightful at one point, right? And it's probably the same with symptoms and herbs.
Mm, yeah, good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
What's cool about herbs in general is that there are so many that fit one symptom. And
Mm-hmm.
you can, like, for example, rose and hawthorn, right? Both of them are really beautiful for heart, both energetically and on a medicinal level. But for
Right.
rose is like vibrationally really, really, really up there. It's one of the highest vibrational botanicals that exist. And so for some people, it's too much. And so you can try something a little more gentle like hawthorn.
Um,
And there's a lot of herbs within like those categories. And it's like anything else, you know, like any other like medicine, like Western medicine, right? It's like there are so many different ones for one symptom that you
Mm-hmm.
get the ability to kind of experiment, if you will, with them, or on a gentler level, like really sit on an energetic level with them and be like, does this feel like it fits for me in this moment now?
Yeah, totally. That, thank you for saying that. It reminds me, like, you know, recently coming out of nursing training, I'm like, okay, I need nervine plants, I need adaptogens, right? These like classifications we've put. So there's a lot of nervines that can help to like calm the system, right? There's a lot of adaptogens that help us like deal with physical stress. Um, and so it can be overwhelming, like, oh, do I just take them all? Do I just like, or like which one is actually calling to me, or you know, which one do I actually resonate with right now? um and so, like, for me, for example, I'm like, okay, there's all these different plants that I know like technically are calming, but when I'm feeling anxious, like basil, holy basil, like immediately feels soothing, just even smelling it or holding a bottle of it. um and like one drop of glycerin and I'm like, oh, I feel less nauseous. Whereas there's other things that are supposed to be calming and I take a little bit and I feel kind of like more nauseous, or it's just a lot to process right now, and I'm like, maybe that's not the medicine for me right now, you know? And same with adaptogens. Like, for some reason ashwagandha was overwhelming for my system. Like, I was like, it was hard to swallow. So I just listened to that and tried different ones. And then maybe later I'll try ashwagandha again when I'm in a different place and I can really like spend some time with it and find the right way of approaching it for me, you know, if I feel so called. Maybe it's just something that my ancestors never grew up around and it doesn't vibe with me, you know, maybe, I don't know. But again, like, letting that be an exploration. Were you going to say something, Jess?
Yeah, so when you were talking towards the beginning, it dawned on me that I had to go and grab this book because this has been and then Gordon asked the question of like, you know, is there like a place where it's all basically listed out? So I I follow this woman on, I think, Instagram, and I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she's hilarious. She's like an interpretive dancer, and she does, while she's doing interpretive dance, she like will start
Tony.
talking about stuff.
Her name's Tony.
Yes, right. And I think
Oh
I
my God, I just met her IRL.
Did you?
Shut.
like last weekend in New York. Anyway, continue.
Okay. So anyway,
Hilarious.
he did one not too long ago that I think I posted on the Fifth Element group because I was like, this is great. Right? But she's talking about all this stuff and she goes into this whole long spiel about how, you know, prior to like the turn of the century 1900s, Rockefeller, like, you know, he basically that he wanted to vertically integrate his petroleum product. Because he had all this basic waste, right, from his oil and everything else. And so he wanted to figure out a way to do it. And so he started to put petroleum into what is now known as prescription medication. So basically, he took like all of these herbal remedies that had been the standard for, you know, all of human history up to that point and created what is now modern pharmaceuticals by like you know, putting petroleum inside, you know, in them, right? Which has then created the entire cancer industry. Right?
Mhm.
And then he founded the American Cancer Society or whatever it's called, to try to shut everybody up because people started to realize pretty quickly that taking all of this prescription medication was causing cancer because of all the petroleum stuff, right? So it's this whole long, I mean, and it's all true, like it's, you know, very sordid and whatnot. And so now here we are in, you know, 2023, and we have all these people who are jacked up on petroleum-based medications. And but one of the things that came from like me researching the stuff that she was saying, just to like verify it, was that if you look up Merck's manual of materia medica, right? Like
Mhm.
basically Merck's manual of prescriptions, right? If you get like a modern one, you're going to get, you know, symptom or whatever, and then it's, you know, here's the prescription pill for that. But if you go and you find the edition from 1899, just prior to when Rockefeller started interfering with everything, you will actually get all of the plant medicines that were used to help alleviate like pretty much, you know, all the things that human beings get, right? So
Mhm.
like you can see the difference between like this edition and then like the next edition that came out in like 19 whatever,
Mhm.
where
Yeah,
by
the
then
different parts of the
Rockefeller had,
plants.
yeah, he'd completely infiltrated by then, right? And so basically what he did was he took all of this and like put petroleum in all of it and called it prescription. And it's all based on, you know, the patent, because that way you can patent it, right? Because plants aren't patentable. And so the
Mhm.
patents are what created, you know, what created the income stream for him. And
Oh
also the
God.
vertical petroleum that was,
Interesting.
So
yeah. So this is, I bought this. I was like, I need like to have this, right? Obviously, but I'm pretty sure it's available online for free because it's so old that it's not in the it's not copyrightable anymore. Like it's in the public domain. I just like having like a nice like handheld version, but I'm pretty sure you can find a PDF of it if anybody's interested. It's really, because you can like just literally buy alphabetically, like bunions, burns and scalds, bursitis, right? Like coughs, like all that. And then it will literally list all of the different plants that help with that particular thing. It's a fantastic resource if anybody's interested.
Very cool. Thank you.
Uh-oh, is Emily frozen?
Emily's frozen.
Emily, you're frozen. Dang it. All right, she'll come back. Nicole, I was also thinking about when she mentioned cacao. So Nicole and I do sound healing events, and not always, but sometimes we have people do we have them drink cacao ahead of time. And it's really funny because Nicole and I can always measure the temperature of the room, and like we can basically feel almost instantly when the cacao starts to hit all of the people. Because there's just this like massive like opening.
Heart.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can on a science level, like the heart even we all know the heart emanates so far out the body that it is measurable. It's actually like physically measurable by like, you know, scientific like measuring tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
But cacao is such a beautiful and for the most part gentle plant. But yeah, we can always, because it gets really, really warm and everyone all of a sudden starts talking
And giggling.
and giggling.
Yeah.
But it's the talking and the sharing that happens, you know, because when you get a group of strangers together, for the most part, people are pretty nervous.
Yeah.
And they keep close to the vest. But, you know, the cacao, just like, everyone's just like, all right, we're here now. We're gonna lay back and we're gonna get chatty. And it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful.
It's really funny too, because people don't like, a lot of the people, sometimes we'll get people who have tried cacao before, but most people haven't. And so when you
Never.
explain it to them, they always think it's going to be like this sweet chocolate drink. And
Mhm.
if you've ever tried it, like it's
It's
extremely,
bitter.
doesn't taste very good at all. I mean, you can mix it with stuff to make it a little better. But it's, it doesn't go down terribly smoothly,
No.
but it works, right? So then people are just kind of like, what is this, right? They're very confused. And then all of a sudden it's just like, woo, okay. Emily, we were just talking about cacao and how Nicole and I use it in ceremony when we do our sound healings. Not always, but we've, about a
Mhm.
handful of the times, and how we can always tell, especially in a group full of women, when they ingest cacao together. It's like, everything's kind of like da 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 da, and then all of a sudden the bass line just goes boom. It's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
It's
okay, now
beautiful.
I feel it.
So powerful. Yeah. And how that just got turned into Hershey's. But wow,
Right. It's such
there's
a
a
it's
lot of energy to honor and be with there.
Yep, I use it. Jess and I use it for ceremony. Anytime I teach a class, I start with a like a short cacao ceremony, because it really does. It brings everyone's resonance together, so that you're all in the same space, really feeling held by the medicine, and that's so beautiful. Especially when in like a class or a workshop setting where you are really creating a container. It's so nice to have an ally in a plant that helps to
Mhm.
hold that container as
Yeah.
well. It's a lot
Yeah.
to hold.
You know, I want to speak to cacao really quick. And also right before that, you were reminding me of a personal story of how I came to start talking to plants when I was in Guatemala that I'm going to share really briefly. Um, so basically, when I've spent some time in Guatemala, and that's where I began my studies of midwifery, learning from the Mayan midwives. And I had some really, really powerful times of like drinking cacao with them that they have like processed and harvested and really deeply gotten to know themselves and then shared with me, and just having like huge like emotional release, like major realizations, like um very obviously directly related to how the cacao was moving through me, and they shared with me that they, sort of, you could almost think of it analogous to like me drinking coffee to get through a night shift. But for them, they shared with me, if we know we're gonna be going to a birth, like we're gonna in the middle of the night or we're gonna be there all night, yeah, cacao is definitely a powerful ally for us in that. And it has this really like connective, like it brings us deeper into our womb energy, and it helps us like with that sustaining energy of staying up. And that was also really interesting to me, like, oh yeah, like validating, I do feel this connection with my womb. I do want to eat chocolate when I'm bleeding. Oh, there are scientific reasons for that, whatever, magnesium. But also, um, there's just this ancient bodily knowing of like, this tastes and feels helpful in my womb space as a woman. It's just, we don't need to explain it further, but like it's helpful to hear that, also that reflection from other women, um and to get to know how, like, yeah, again, it's very personal. And okay, cool, let's like bring this medicine for each other and with each other to like when we notice how it affects our group dynamic or our ability to be here for each other through a long labor, whatever. Um, so that's one thing I wanted to say. And also it reminded me, um, so when my path took like a major turn in Guatemala, I was many years ago, I had gone to Guatemala as a natural building assistant, like to be a natural builder. And at one point, my So this is actually like a long, weird story of like why I went to nursing school and midwifery training. But this part of the story is that it all started when my foot, I got like a cut on my foot and it got really infected. And so it became harder and harder to walk. Like it was really painful. It was getting worse and worse. It's like blistering. And I was like, so I, you know, went to the nearest health clinic and they're like, oh, here's some antibiotic ointment, shipped in from somewhere. This will probably help with whatever it is. But it wasn't helping. It would not, like, it just was not helping at all. It just kept getting worse. So I, pretty soon after trying that, I kept thinking, it's supposed to work. Maybe it'll work. Um, but for now, I needed some time off from like being on my feet, building a home. So, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this as a sign to maybe slow down. Like literally, I have to stop walking this path and like go into like rest and healing mode. So I had the blessing to find this like dormitory hostel, like way deep in the jungle. So I stayed there for a bit. And while I was there, I ended up meeting this um, Mayan man who befriended me, who lived like right there on that exact, right there where I was. He had been his whole life. And so he would come, help with like checking on the dorm and doing some like ground maintenance, and he would just like talk with me and hang out with me, um and he noticed my foot and he was like, you're ready to yeah, like he's like, I feel like this is calling you into your medicine path of like, you need to talk to the plants and figure out which plant is growing right here to help you with what you are dealing with from a cut from right here. um and it's often that there's a remedy very close to the thing that might hurt, like where poison ivy's growing, a lot of times there's jewelweed to soothe the itch. And where there's ragweed that gives people allergies this time of year, there's also usually a lot of goldenrod around, which is a tea, goldenrod flower can be made into a tea to help with allergies. So I kind of thought of like, now I'm thinking of it in that way, but whatever. He was just like, I am sending you on a mission. Like, go talk to the plants and figure out which plant can help you with your foot. And I got, I got so frustrated. I was like, dude, what? Like, you're like, if you can talk to plants, that's really cool. Cause I'm just like this white girl. I don't know what, I can't do that. Please help me. Can you help me? I need help. Somebody tell me what to take, like that's the paradigm I came from. And I was like, you got to tell me what to do. Plants, it's risky. What if I take the wrong one? And he was like, no, no, no. Like, just go find something. Like, go find the plant. You'll feel it, you'll see it, and then bring it back to me. And I can, affirm for you or whatever, tell you to keep looking. So I go out and I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to be able to do it. But with just a little bit of curiosity and openness, I was like wandering around and I'm like, this plant just like caught my eye and it had these very like jagged edges that literally when I looked at that, it felt like and reminded me of this sharp feeling on my foot of the cut. And it just somehow it felt like the energy sort of like could meet me there and it was like soothing to look at or something. So I just picked a leaf and brought it back to my friend. And he was like, yeah, yeah, that's the one. That's the one I was going to suggest. And I was like, to this day, I'm like, did he just tell me that to like help me continue the exploration? Or maybe it really was. Like, I don't know. But anyway, so then he showed me how he works with it, which was like he crushed it up, which is commonly done for, topical wounds. So he like crushed it up, chewed it up, and then put it on my wound. And then it was so cool. He like cracked an egg, and that tiny film when you crack an egg, there's like that film on the inside. It's really thin. So he like peeled that off and it stuck around the thing as like a band-aid, like a clear band-aid. And he's like, okay, sit with that for a while. And I mean, it wasn't the only thing I needed to resolve that and heal that, but it was like way more helpful than this cream from who knows where and who knows what. So yeah, I just wanted to share that story. See if it brings up any other musings or questions. And if not, maybe I don't know, anything else that you want to ask before we sign off for today?
No, this was great. I love the interactiveness of it, and everyone's like, you know, working together for collective knowledge. It's really nice.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way medicine's supposed to work, I think.
Yeah. Again, like that collective knowledge and affirmation and hearing other people's experience is really, really helpful, right? We don't want to be like totally experimenting, especially when we don't feel good already, like, right? So we want to honor that every plant is its own potent medicine. And you know, we can explore it, right? Like we were talking about energetically, homeopathically. We don't have to like ingest bunches of it and then see how we feel. There's a lot of ways. So that's why tuning in, right? Like really just making time and space to like tune in, drop in, empty mind, beginner's mind. That's more what I was talking about with like our own exploration. Um, yeah. And for me, that's definitely been like a kind of spiritual element that has really helped me on my healing path, you know, finding my own way of sensing and trusting my intuition and working with plants. Um, and again, I don't really like to say working with plants. I mean, I guess for me, what that brings up is like they're going to do work for us. And there's kind of this like, you know, there is kind of this power dynamic and this control thing that humans have gotten into with plants, right? We want to like dominate and clear cut and manage and dose and make it all the same and like for us and take. And so it's really about coming back to reciprocity and relationship. Maybe the plant's like, hey, I can support you, but first, like, I'm going to support you by like, you sit here next to me and sing to me, or, you know, like, who knows? Um, but it's an interaction. It's not like a one-way transaction or slavery thing that we want to impose on these plant beings that are really here for us. And one more thing that reminds me of is like the as I sit with one plant at a time more and more, it helps me to remember this like really deeply soothing kind of spiritual truth of our nature of being alive, which is that each and every being, each and every one of us has our own medicine, like inherently. That's just like, we don't have to, like, I feel like in the human realm, we get so focused on like, oh, I'm supposed to like figure out my purpose and like prove that I'm contributing enough. And people have to validate and understand what I'm contributing. And, you know, I have to be compensated for that with money. And otherwise, it's not valuable. And it's like really gotten in the way of our clear enjoyment and remembrance of like, oh yeah, the unique medicine of being me, of just being me. Like that's so natural for most, you know, for plants and animals. They're just like, in my perception, you know, they're like, I'm here. Plants are constantly emanating and giving their medicine. Like they're giving off oxygen, whatever, like so much. They're transmuting carbon. They're like, and it's just again, it's like the lemon balm is no more, it doesn't have to do anything to share its medicine. We just get to receive it and interact with it in the ways that we choose. Like it's just there giving. Do you know what I mean? And it's so for me in that context, in that sense, the plant's medicine is really just like it's energy. And again, it's going to interact differently with the configuration of energy and medicine that you are, you know, it's going to be unique. I think plants in general have a way of sharing their energy, and animals in general have a different way. It's like of sharing their love energy, but just knowing like it just, yeah, plants really help me remember that like just having a beating heart that cares at all, that feels and emanates love at all, like that's your medicine that you're constantly sharing with the world. So can you receive and feel your own medicine? Can you slow down and like get to know your own essence and then explore how that interacts with these other essences?
Well, that's beautiful.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for hearing my spiel, y'all, and thanks for being here, being your awesome selves. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this was awesome. Emily, thank you so much. We always love having you because you have so much good stuff to share. We do have to close up now because I have to like get myself into reading mode.
Mhm.
Okay, I can do it. Thank you everybody for being here. Always good to see everyone. This was great, interactive. I love this is like exactly what we've been going for with these things for a while. So it's nice to see that they're starting to, to pick up some steam and some momentum. Hopefully we can continue. So spread the word, tell your friends, Saturday morning sermons.
Yay.
For those of you, if you guys, if I think everybody in here is in the group on Facebook. If not, find us Fifth Element Free Church on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I know we need to probably figure out a way to spread into some other spaces because not everybody is on Facebook and not everybody uses Facebook. So, but it's nice to, I'd love to be able to carry these conversations over, kind of into the social media space and, be able to keep people informed of what we're doing over here. Nicole, you think of anything to add, or we?
I think we're good. This was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everybody, you guys all have an amazing week, rest of your weekend, and we will be back here next week for some more fun. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Good to
All
see you
right.
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.